I'm Stephen Foskett, publisher of Gestalt IT and organizer of Tech Field Day. We're here at KubeCon in Detroit 2022, and we are meeting with a variety of companies that we are interested in the enterprise, Kubernetes, and cloud space. I'm here with Yasmin Rajabi from StormForge, who's somebody you might have seen at Tech Field Day.
Hey, Stephen, happy to be here. My name is Yasmin, head of product at StormForge, and we're here at KubeCon to talk about Kubernetes at scale and how to deal with resource optimization and using machine learning to tackle that problem.
So StormForge was a real eye-opener for the people at Cloud Field Day because, frankly, one of the challenges of the cloud and Kubernetes is that it's really easy to basically spin up all sorts of resources, all the wrong size, all the wrong configuration, and it's really hard to kind of get a handle of that because sometimes it's hard to even know like which nodes are part of which cluster or anything, and then are these right sized? Even if you're using auto-scaling, is it happening at the right granularity? Is it preparing for the right things? There's 100 different questions. And those are the questions that you brought up at our Cloud Field Day event. And I think that it's really worth kind of diving into that. So maybe you can give the folks who are watching just a quick overview, like what is StormForge and what do you do?
Yeah, so StormForge is a platform that allows for resource optimization, and we do that in two ways. So in pre-production, we allow you to be proactive and generate load tests and run machine learning on those load tests so that you can come up with the best configuration for your deployment in production. And that's whether maybe your outcome is I want to reduce my costs, or I want to reduce my performance, or I want to find the optimal trade-off between the two of those outcomes so that I'm properly tuning my application to be the most resource efficient. And then in production, the way our platform handles this is we look at data inputs like Datadog or Prometheus, and we, in real time, collect that information and run our machine learning against that to provide the user with recommendations for their settings for CPU request limits, memory request limits. And additionally, we'll set the target utilization of the HPA so that when they are auto-scaling, when they're scaling horizontally, they're doing that in the most resource-efficient manner.
It seems like a lot of people might think, if they haven't experienced it, that Kubernetes kind of takes care of scaling for you. What is it that what are the failings, what are the shortcomings of Kubernetes' own automatic scaling, both horizontal and vertical? And it's not like you're trashing them, but what are the differences?
So Kubernetes out of the box comes with HPA, VPA scaling. And the challenge, though, even in the VPA docs, it'll tell you you should not use the two of them if you have HPA enabled to scale on CPU, which it scales by default. So unless you're going into customizing how Kubernetes is doing out-of-the-box scaling, you can lead into CPU throttling. So the HPA is looking at resource utilization and wanting to add more replicas to reduce that resource utilization. The VPA, however, looks into the utilization and wants to increase and get the most out of it, and then that leads to the thrashing. And so what we do is we allow you to do the vertical scaling, and then additionally, we allow you to do horizontal scaling in a way that actually works for that end user. And if you think about it, you're someone trying to tune these settings, that becomes really difficult. And the tools that you have available to you should work. And you look at the defaults in the docs, and they should work. But the challenge is every application runs a little differently. So being able to look at that data and come up with the right settings becomes a very large at-scale problem.
Yeah, it seems like the defaults are never going to be right for anyone because I guess by default, they're going to be kind of conservative and they're going to make sure that you have some headroom. They're going to make sure that you're not making a horrible mistake. And at the same time, it seems too that simple rules never really work for this sort of thing. I come from a storage background, and we were always very careful to try to keep our hands on and make sure that we were watching the metrics and make sure that we were using our smarts to precisely tune the system because we knew things that simple rules just couldn't know. And one of the things that strikes me about application scaling is that it really is dependent on sort of the business cycle. And applications may need more resources at unexpected times, well, times that would seem unexpected to a simple rule that might be able to be uncovered by a machine learning algorithm like the one that you're using.
Yeah, totally. Like we talk a lot about cost cutting and reducing resources, but sometimes you're actually just not properly resourced, and you need to increase your resources. And from that end, we'll kind of save you from kills, for example, because machine learning isn't always trying to just reduce it; it's trying to set it to the most optimal. And as your traffic patterns change, and as it looks at more data, it can predict here's what your settings should be.
Yeah. And that's not just in terms of like every day at 8 o'clock we turn it up, every day at 6 o'clock we turn it down. You can get some much more detailed patterns that people may not even know about their applications.
Exactly. And we have users that deploy those recommendations every hour too, so they can be very specific to the traffic patterns as they're happening.
But of course, that being said, some people may be a little scared of auto scaling. They may say, oh my gosh, I don't want some company and some product and some machine learning algorithm messing with my implementation, my application. You guys aren't messing with their stuff, right?
Totally, totally. And I think that's a valid concern from an end user, and that's why we give them confidence, allow them to watch the recommendation, and when they're comfortable, flip it to automatic mode. And that automatic mode could be maybe they want to deploy it once a week, and they want to watch it and deploy, or they want to deploy it daily. They're not ready to deploy it every hour, and that's totally okay. We'll integrate also into their CI/CD system so that they can automate that deployment as well, or give them the tools just to do it themselves.
Yeah. And in terms of sort of the intensity of the product, you mentioned Prometheus and Datadog. I don't know of any production Kubernetes instance that's not using Prometheus or Datadog. And you're basically just taking the information from those sources. So you're not installing a whole bunch more software that needs to be run and everything.
We take the data that already exists in your environment. We look at telemetry data like usage and request limits, and we'll pull that in from the existing observability platform and then provide recommendations on top of that.
And you showed us at the Cloud Field Day, you were doing a demo of this in sort of in real time, showing us how it looks. And I think that was one of the most remarkable things was the granularity of what you're looking at and I don't know what the right term is, but basically kind of tightening up the headroom a little bit so that you know that there's headroom, but there's not so much. Because in reality, I think a lot of customers run with just way too much excess capacity. You've seen a lot of customers, you've seen their data. How much excess capacity is there out there that could be reclaimed if people were just a little more aggressive about moving workloads?
Honestly, like it sounds surprising, but the last few customers we've been working with had over 50% in savings, which is a really big number. But when you look at the dashboards that we have, you can see your waste, and you can see based on how aggressive you want us to be, what waste we can reduce, and the numbers are amazing. But I think that all goes back to it's a lot of guesswork in setting it, and you over provision to be safe, and so there's a lot of resource savings on the table.
Absolutely. And I honestly think that a lot of the people, well, especially the people at a place like KubeCon, might not be surprised to know that there's 50% over allocation because they probably kind of already feel that. We're all looking at our systems all the time. We're seeing how much is used and unused. And I think that we kind of have this gut feeling that there is plenty of over provisioning. But at the same time, we kind of don't want to mess with it because if we mess with it, then we might cause a problem. And that's, I think, where the attraction of like Prometheus comes, because you can maybe query it and look at the stats. But if you don't really know what to do with the stats, then you're kind of not really getting anywhere. So I think that's why the product is so compelling.
Exactly. Like there's only so many times you can be told, hey, you might have a problem, but then how do I actually fix that in a way that doesn't take down my systems? And some of the organizations we work with have FinOps teams, for example, that have so many reports that will tell you, okay, you're over provisioned here are your cost numbers there, and they bring those back to the teams that are responsible for taking care of the systems. And they're like, okay, well, if I reduce my resources, I don't know how that impacts the reliability of my application. And so that's where I think machine learning is really strong, to look into that data, provide you the recommendations, and show you that it'll continue to be stable and more efficient, and you don't have to make those trade-offs.
So you mentioned FinOps. I think that's one of the areas that is, well, certainly a lot of people are interested in it, but I think also it's an area that's been really challenging for cloud architects and Kubernetes administrators and so on, because like I said earlier, you kind of, in many cases, you don't even really know what you have out there until you get the bill. And also, it's just extremely confusing to know exactly how much am I spending on this at this time? What would be the impact if I spent a different amount or if I did a different thing? Are you guys also integrating that information to give a more, I don't know, a simpler accounting of the cost?
We're looking at ways in how we can integrate with tools like that. I think right now where we're focused is the action portion, so allowing you to do something and give you the recommendations on how to actually reduce it. But as we kind of look beyond into our roadmap, being able to plug and play with the tools that give you that insight, and what my marketing counterpart loves to say is we turn observability into actionability. So taking that data and actually doing something with it, that's really where we see our core value prop.
And on that point, are you planning on having the product be a little bit more proactive? I know that right now, like I said, it's actually a positive that the product isn't in there moving the knobs around, because I think a lot of people are kind of mistrusting software doing that. But at the same time, I imagine that some customers, once they get comfortable with it, might actually want you to do that. Are you planning on having it on full self-driving mode?
And so we enable full self-driving mode today, but the way we do that is we give you the configuration, so you can either check it into your GitOps workflow, or we'll actually deploy it for you. So you can turn on auto driving mode today, but we do believe it's important to give you that confidence first. But we, like large bank, has us in fully auto mode, and we're deploying those configurations, and then for their HPA, setting the target utilization so that it scales appropriately.
So one more thing on that too is sometimes there are more regular spikes or predictable spikes in workload over time due to calendars. So maybe it's end of quarter processing, or maybe it's the holiday shopping season or something. Is there a way for administrators to kind of put that stuff into StormForge as well?
That's something as we look beyond of like how much data we collect, so that we can provide more predictions on seasonality. So, Black Friday, maybe you want to spin up a bunch of extra infrastructure because you're going to have this event. Or financial customers that are more Monday through Friday workloads and they want to scale down on the weekends. And so that's something that as we kind of go beyond and start to collect more data, we can start to provide those recommendations.
All right, great. Well, how do customers get started with this? So let's say somebody is thinking, okay, I'm interested. I'm a Datadog user, so I probably have the data. What can I do to check this thing out? What do they do?
Yeah, so if you have Datadog, you can actually just start on the marketplace and download us from there. You can purchase it through the Datadog marketplace, or just download it, get a trial, try it out for yourself, and it comes with out-of-the-box dashboards as well. If you're using Prometheus and you just want to get started, stormforge.io is our website, and there's a big button on the top for getting started, and we'd be happy to work with you on that.
And what is the licensing and pricing and all that kind of stuff? You said it's in the Datadog marketplace.
Yeah, so we're currently priced by core, no matter what product that you're using. And basically, what I like about that is we're really putting our money where our mouth is, because we want to reduce the cores that you're using, and we believe in our value so much that we can help you scale out to more applications as you're doing your resource optimization.
All right, great. Well, thank you for joining us, and thanks for presenting. If you're interested in learning a lot more about StormForge, check out techfieldday.com. Put StormForge in the search box, and you'll find some technical deep dives and demos there. You can also use your friendly neighborhood search engine to find those. Just look for StormForge and Field Day. Thanks for watching these videos. I'm Stephen Foskett from Gestalt IT. You can find more at youtube.com/GestaltIT video or at gestaltit.com.